Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Dirty Boots and Dark Coffee. Today I am just hanging out here in the living room with little Macy girl while she runs around and burns off some energy. So while I'm sitting here, I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I've been thinking about covering for a while, and that is things that I wish I had known before we moved into an RV full time. Okay, so the first thing that I wish I had known was that you have to be super organized to live in an RV and not lose your mind. Because when space is this limited, every single purchase that you make has to be very carefully weighed and measured. And I mean that literally. So if you live in a house, it's easy to be walking around the store and see something that you like and think, oh, I want to get that, or oh, that would look great in our place, or that would be really useful to have, and you just buy it. Now, I'm not saying that living in an RV and the limited space and the things that makes you take into consideration is a bad thing, because it's really not. It's super helpful to help you stay simplified, but it's a huge shift in the way that you think about everything, because we literally can't buy anything else than what we have right now. Because if you're walking through the store and you see a kitchen gadget that you've always wanted, or you've been thinking about trying, like a KitchenAid or a new spiralizer or something like that, you have to think super carefully about how much cabinet space you actually have, and if the space that thing is going to take up is actually worth the convenience that it offers you. Not really something that you would have to take that carefully into consideration, like picture in your brain, exactly where am I going to put this? Because if I can't think of a place, then I can't buy it. So I honestly think that that's a positive shift, because simple is really better, and it's better for your budget. It just, we tend to buy more things than we need in general, but where it becomes difficult is when that comes into play with groceries. Because I don't know if you guys have ever seen an RV fridge, but they're about this big. So you have to really carefully think out your groceries and what you're going to buy, which means a lot of meal planning and preparation, and having a list and really sticking to it when you go grocery shopping, because otherwise you come home with things that are literally not going to fit in your refrigerator. Another thing that I wish I had realized, and this is probably obvious to some of you guys, really should have been to me too, but just because a place is small does not by any stretch of the imagination mean that it is easy to keep clean. In fact, quite the opposite. I've lived in bigger houses and I've lived in small apartments, and in a big place, it's pretty easy to still feel like you have room and like your place is decluttered, even when it's full of junk. But when we moved into the RV and we went through the process of downsizing our belongings and really getting rid of anything that wasn't an absolute essential, everything during the move-in process was given a very well thought out place. We brought, we had a garage at the time. We moved everything that we were going to keep into the garage, and piece by piece thought and talked about where this is going to go when we're in our RV and why. Is it going to stay there when we're going down the road? Is this going to be the most efficient use of our space while we're parked somewhere? And if anything is out of place, which is all the time because we have a toddler and she goes around doing what we call terrorizing the house, she just, to keep herself entertained, she picks stuff up and moves it to a different place, or she opens her drawers and pulls everything out and puts it where it's not supposed to be. So in about no seconds flat, the house is a complete disaster, because anything out of its very meticulously thought out strategic location and your house is a mess, because your house is the size of a thimble. She knows I'm talking about her terrorizing right now. But anything out of place and your house is a disaster. And that's something that I wish I'd been a little bit more mentally prepared for, because especially with a toddler, I feel like we're constantly in this state of chaos. And it just takes a little bit of time to get your head around the fact that this is just life now. But for those of you who don't have children, you might not have this issue unless you just struggle with organization personally. But if that is the case and you don't like living in a mess, I highly recommend that you get your act together and learn how to organize things and get rid of crap that you don't need. Because once you move into a tiny little space, you're going to feel extremely pressed for room, and it's just kind of, for me, it creates like this mental clutter. Like, I can't do my job, I can't think, I can't write code at my desk when the bed behind me isn't made. That's just how my brain works. So if you're anything like that, I really recommend that you weigh that out before moving into an RV and do your best to get your crap together and get yourself organized before you move into a small space. Another thing that you really need to consider if you're a big shower person is that once you move into an RV, showers are very short. Not saying that you can't have a shower every day, you can, but your shower is going to be a lot shorter than you're used to having at a traditional house. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that obviously hot water heaters are just not the same size in an RV that they are in a house. Some people and some models of RVs come standard with an instant hot water heater. If yours doesn't, you can always go out and buy an instant hot water heater. You can get them on Amazon even, and you can install them. But you're still not going to have long showers, and here's why. Say that you go out and you buy that instant hot water heater, you plug it in, and you get all pumped and think to yourself, I'm going to go take a 10-minute shower. If you're staying off grid, you still have a limited supply of water, and you have a limited amount of space in your gray tank. So you're going to be of this new mindset once you're in the RV of conserving water, which involves taking shorter showers, and you don't have an unlimited sewage system at your disposal unless you are in an RV park and you are actually piped in. That might seem like it's not a big issue, but considering the fact that you're probably going to be on a budget, and RV parks that have full hookups, and that means unlimited supplies of water and unlimited supplies of sewage, are very spendy. So it's difficult, you know, it's kind of rare to find one that has full hookups, is in a good location, and is affordable to stay there long term. So, you know, it's nice to go stop at one every once in a while and kind of be spoiled for the weekend, have your long showers and let that water run, but it's not going to be sustainable long term if you're on any kind of a budget. Another thing you need to be aware of if you're thinking about moving into an RV is that they move even when you're parked. So like right now, we're parked right in an RV park, our stabilizer jacks are down, and we're fully plumbed in, and still every time my husband takes a step or goes up and down the stairs or shakes anything, even my baby moving around right now is rocking the trailer. My husband honestly doesn't really notice it, and he makes fun of me for noticing it, but it really just depends on you as a person if that kind of thing bothers you long term. I notice it especially when I'm trying to work at my computer and then the trailer starts to rock. I'll actually notice a little bit of almost like a motion sickness set on. And for those times, because if you're living in an RV, there eventually will be a time when you are literally sick. Like you'll have the flu or something and you'll be living in your RV. And then you will really notice it because somebody gets up and walks across the place or comes in the front door and it will rock enough to make you puke, and it is not cool. But wish I'd realized that before we moved into an RV. Kind of bugs me sometimes. My husband doesn't even notice it. You'll have to figure out for yourself if that's going to be an issue for you. Another thing that I wish I'd realized is that there's a pretty big difference between an RV stove and a traditional stove that you're going to have in your house. I personally really enjoy cooking, and I used to make all kinds of fun stuff like zucchini fries and lasagna, which I should actually make a recipe for that because that was a really good one. We used to do this like super fun vegetable lasagna. French fries, you know, they only get crispy if you run that broiler for a little while. If you're like making zucchini chips or anything like that, you really need to have a broiler. And the way that an RV stove works is they have a little pilot light. RV ovens just have a pilot light at the base of the oven, and once you put your lighter in there and turn that on, it heats up, and you can turn the knob and like kick your oven up to 350 degrees, 400 degrees, just like you would with any other one. But there is no top broiler. There is nothing at the very top of the unit to heat food from the top down. So if you like getting that nice crispy bubbly effect on your food, you're not gonna get that out of an RV. Sorry. So another topic that is worth covering is the fact that once you're living in an RV and you're traveling full time, it's a pretty big process to get your mail. So we've been pretty fortunate. The town that we left was my hometown, and it's where my parents are. So originally I was getting all of my mail at my P.O. box, and I was able to just maintain that and continue using my post office box without having to switch addresses or change billing information or anything like that. And what my parents have nicely agreed to do for us is check our mailbox every so often. They do it a few times a month so that we don't miss anything that's like super important, like a bill or anything like that, and let it go for too long. And I'm comfortable with them just opening it and scanning and sending us anything that's important. If typically my mom will like send me a picture and kind of let me have a bird's eye view of what I got in the mail, and if there's anything too sensitive, I can just tell her to toss it or shred it. And if I feel comfortable with her opening it, then I can just tell her go ahead and open that, and she scans it and sends it to me as a digital PDF. Now, if you don't have those circumstances, or you don't feel comfortable with any of your relatives to the degree that you would trust them with your mail, which, you know, that's pretty typical for a lot of people, and I completely understand why you would feel that way, but there are still solutions for you out there. If you do a Google search on digital mailboxes, I think one of them is called physicaladress.com. There's another one called postmail.com. There's digitalmailservice.com. There's a bunch of different solutions out there, and so I recommend just kind of thumbing through those first few results that you get and comparing prices, and check out the testimonials, see how the program works and what it offers you. There are some that are literally just a digital mailbox, and so what happens is you forward all of your mail to one of those providers' physical addresses. They usually have several stationed throughout the country. Your mail arrives there. They send you basically a snapshot of all of the mail that you have coming your way, and you have the option, a lot of them provide a mobile app, which is pretty nice. You have the option from your mobile app to tell them, yes, open that, scan it, and send it to me, and you will receive it right within your mobile app. Or you can tell them to shred something if it's sensitive, or you can have them recycle. So if things show up in your mailbox like advertisements and newsletters and things that aren't really sensitive but also aren't important, you can just have them throw it in the recycling. Now, if you get a good package or you're working with a good company, they also will provide you with a physical address, which is kind of a big topic that a lot of people wonder about when it comes to living in an RV full time. Is you still, for so many things today, are required to have a physical address. So if you're registering to vote, or you want a driver's license, or you need to renew this, that, and the other thing, you're applying for a loan, all of those things will require some kind of a physical address. And if you tell them, well, I live on the road and I don't have a physical address, they are not going to accept your application. So if you have relatives that you'd feel comfortable using, you can establish some kind of residency at their place and have that as a legal physical address and have your mail sent there, and then you have proof of address. You can get like bills sent there and things like that. Otherwise, a lot of the services out there will provide a legal way to have a physical address. So look into that, and if you have a favorite, please leave that in the comments down below, because it's a service that I've looked into and I've done a lot of research on, but I've never actually had the need to sign up for one myself. So I would be really interested in hearing what you guys have to say about your experiences with any of those different mail services. Another thing that I wish I'd realized is how often you're going to have to go grocery shopping once you live in an RV full time. I got used to having a big fridge, and actually we used to have a chest freezer that we kept in the garage, and we could stock up on meats, and we could throw extra loaves of bread and extra bags of shredded cheese and all kinds of good stuff in there, and stock up when things were on sale or when we went to a bulk store like Winco or Costco. You don't really have that option once you move into an RV anymore. So I think once we made the transition, we went from shopping at Winco once a month. We would go and we would make a big deal of it, and we would get everything we needed for the month, and then we would stop at the local grocery outlet. Sorry, my kid is terrorizing everybody. We would stop at the local grocery outlet about an extra 2 times a month, just to grab those little things that you run out of because you can't really stock up on them, like milk and things like that. But since we moved into the RV, we have started shopping probably about twice a week, just because the freezer option isn't really there. You can't exactly have a chest freezer and live in an RV while traveling, and your refrigerator space is cut about in half. So we still have been able to make use of our pantry here. We have like a nice sized cupboard with about 3 shelves in it, and then the space underneath our sink in the RV I use to keep all of our canned food and everything that's heavy, because I don't like putting heavy stuff up on the shelf up high. I feel like it stresses the shelves more than I want to once you start to kind of stock up on things. And in the event that we're going down the road and a cupboard door came open, something like that, I don't really want those cans flying around and bashing in walls or breaking stuff. So I like to keep everything that's heavy down low. So the space under your sink is your friend, and any kind of cabinet space you can make room for your pantry stuff is your friend. But aside from that, be prepared that if you move into an RV, you will have a definite increase in how often you have to go stock up on groceries, because you just don't have the same options you had when you were in a house. I also wish that I had known how much utilities can potentially cost once you move into an RV. For one, because they're just not insulated the same way that a house is, so you lose a lot of heat rather quickly. They tend to have a lot of windows, and they're usually well, I guess maybe some of the newer models have double pane windows, which have a better insulation value. But the model that we have is 2002, and so because of that, even just sitting near the windows, I can feel the draft. Whether I'm at my desk or I'm in the living room, I can feel that we're losing heat through those windows. So we have our heaters running pretty much all the time for that reason. And the thing is that I thought for sure before we left that it would be cheaper to stay off grid. That we would, I invested in a signal booster so that I would be able to get internet at places that you wouldn't normally be able to get internet. And that would enable us to, since I work from home, it would enable us to park at cheaper, maybe even free, kind of like state parks and national forests and things like that. Things that it would allow us to save money. But we tried that for several months, and it didn't actually pencil out the way that I thought it was going to. For one, because you're not tapped into water, you're not tapped into sewer, you don't have power. So what you run off of is your generator, because at least in my case, I have to keep my laptop charged. I have to keep my cell phone charged so that I can work. And especially if you have a kid, you have to have running water. It's just kind of non-negotiable. So several times, what was it, at least twice a week, we had to pull up our stabilizer jacks, hook up to the truck, pull into the nearest town, and find a dump station where we could empty our sewer tanks, and then a fill station where we could fill our freshwater tank. We also had to stop by the gas station and fill up our generator so that we could keep our batteries topped off so that we had lights. and so that we could plug in our devices and keep them charged as well. So after a few weeks of that, we did the math on it, and we found out that between the time that it took to pull up the stabilizer jacks, secure everything that was in the RV, hook up to the truck, and be ready to pull out, plus driving into town, doing all those things. And once you're in town, financially it makes sense to stop and get your groceries and do your laundry and things like that. By the time we got back, I had lost several hours of my workday. So between the hours of my workday that were lost, the money that we were spending on the generator, and the gas that we were using several times a week to pull into town to refill water, we could have been staying at an RV park up to like $25, $26 a night. Now, there's a lot of RV parks that charge $45 up to $60 a night, but if you can find those rare gems, those diamonds in the rough that are like in that $25, $30, $35 range a night, for us, it was totally worth it because I got those work hours back, which means that I had more hours a day that I was actually bringing in money, and less hours a day that I was spending, not only not making money, but spending money on fuel for our generator and fuel for our truck to go take care of those little things. So utilities can really add up in that sense because there's more than just the initial cost that's obvious. There's also the kind of hidden costs that do tend to add up, like your time and your gas and things like that. Even if you stay in an RV park, I have not stayed in one because I just refuse to, but there are RV parks out there that you might find yourself at that will charge you utilities on top of your nightly fee. So if you find yourself in that circumstance, you are going to have a higher utility bill than you're thinking, just because, like I said, most RVs, unless you're sporting like a 2019 brand new $75,000 rig, they're not very well insulated. You will lose your heat, so you will be running constantly. I've talked about this before, but one of my tips to you to keep your utilities down is to switch from propane to electric for your heat, because we have two 7-gallon propane tanks, and if we're not using those for our furnace, we can live on those propane tanks for like a month, or maybe if, like, give or take a few days. We've stretched it a few days past a month before, because all we're using it for is to fuel our hot water heater and our stove. Our stove. But when we first started out, we didn't have any electric heat, so we were running completely on our propane heaters. And when it would get cold at night, we were concerned about, like, well, what if it gets cold enough tonight that our pipes freeze and then we have to deal with this leak or broken pipes or whatever, so we would run that furnace. We went 7 or 8 days on those tanks, and we had to refill. So that was about $45 every 8 days. That adds up really, really quickly on top of all of your other costs. So go to Walmart. Yeah, Walmart. Get yourself a heater for your main room and a heater for whatever other little rooms you have, or your underbelly or whatever, because that $10, $15 you're going to spend on a heater, and even if you're paying electric, it's still going to be cheaper than that propane, because electric is significantly cheaper than propane is. Even if you're doing Blue Rhino, which I really don't recommend, I'm not even going to go there right now, you're going to spend quite a bit of money every single month on propane. So I always recommend that you get your own tanks, keep them certified, fill them at actual fill stations. Don't use Blue Rhino, it's not cost effective at all, and supplement that propane with electric heat if you're staying anywhere where you have to run a heater at night or in the morning, and that will help keep your utilities low. So, as my kid terrorizes.